Why live foods? And of course, that could be all-day lecture, right? Okay. But look at the picture. What is that? It's 2 cabbage leaves from the same cabbage. The one above is cooked, the one down below is raw. Do you see a difference? Okay. And that difference, this is Carillion photography, is the bioluminescence that's really there. And what does that mean? Well, first, I talk about live food as unbroken wholeness. That's a very important thing because it's the synergy of the whole thing. Now, there is a fad a little bit about blending everything. And one of our master's students did research with Carillion photography, and we found that after 10 seconds, most people blend for 2 to 3 minutes, right? 10 seconds, there's a dramatic loss in energy. So that's really interesting. Now, I know Brian feels the same way, that this blending may be not such a good thing because he suggested some research that's been done showing there's an increased oxidation with the blending. There's also electromagnetic disruption, and we don't have the unbroken wholeness. So, but there's a blender I want to sell you on. Called your teeth. God gave us a blender. Let's not get confused here. And not only does it blend, but when we chew, we're activating all the meridians going through the teeth. Not bad. And the next thing is it increases your serotonin output by 500%. And then it also stimulates your digestion. These are really good things. There is a plan. We pay attention, and we think we're so smart. Oh, we'll do blending, we'll do speed. But we miss the whole process. So that unbroken wholeness is actually really important. Next is the biophotons. And everything gives off light. Everybody here is giving off light. When you cook food, you destroy the biophoton energy, which connects us with the cosmos. So Dr. Fritz Popp, who's still alive, from Germany, developed a machine to measure it. And he found that people eating junk food were giving off 1,000 biophotons. A person eating cooked organic food is 23,000. Newborn babies, 43,000. A live fooder is 83,000. That means 83 times more biophoton energy being given off. Biophotons are really going on with the DNA. It's all the messages intracellular and extracellular. And you ever see like the fish, they all move together? That instantaneous thing, it's all biophoton energy. So all the communications in the body depend on having a level of biophoton energy. Okay, more biophoton, better communication, better organization. Everything works better. So that's what the biophoton is about. And then I talk about the subtle organizing energy fields. This is a theory I brought out in 1986. My first book, Spiritual Nutrition, the Rainbow Diet. And what I'm talking about is that everybody has a field around them. Now, I kind of started with the idea of morphogenic field, but this says this field organizes everything in our system. It's the energetic template. And when we deplete it, it doesn't work so well. When we organize it, give it energy, it becomes more organized and everything works better. DNA replicates better. Cells replicate better. Of course, that means less cancer and so forth, right? And that's the point, is that when we're eating live food and taking in the biophoton energy, we really, really are, okay, organizing that field and becoming healthier. And we have more energy and vitality. So that's part of what goes on. What's that? It's a sprout giving off biophoton energy. It's a radish sprout. So one of the other points that's really important about live food is research done by Dr. Stephen Spindler, University of California at Riverside. And what he did is he took rats and he put gene chips in and he basically gave them 40% less calories. And after a month, following the gene chips, he's able to show a 400% increase in the anti-aging genes, meaning increase meaning turned on. 400% increase in the anti-inflammatory genes. Inflammation is the driving cause behind all chronic disease, including diabetes. Okay? 400% increase in the anti-cancer genes and 400% increase in the antioxidant genes. Now that's impressive. That's a huge anti-aging thing. Now, it's been translated and called caloric restriction, but on live food, different story. So when you cook food, according to Max Planck Institute in Germany, you lose 50% of the protein, gets coagulated, 60 to 70% of the minerals and vitamins, and up to 95 to 100% of the phytonutrients. Aha! Therefore, if we're eating live food, we can eat 50% less food. We're automatically doing calorie restriction. We're automatically turning on our anti-aging genes. Isn't that interesting? It's like when I made that connection, oh, this is really interesting. Okay, because that's one of the great benefits, biophoton energy and the natural caloric restriction. Okay, really, really important in the whole thing. Now, Dr. Hans Eppinger at the first medical clinic in Vienna made a really interesting discovery, and this is really in the 30s, 1930s and so forth. What he found was that people get very depleted. Like our cells are batteries, our body's a battery on one level, okay? Because we're multiple levels. And what he found is when people had chronic diseases, their battery charge was quite low. And he discovered that the only way he could get the battery charge up was live food. Supplements didn't do it. Live food did. And what's that about? Is that our little trees are out there with their leaves and they're catching the biophoton energies and the photon energies from the sun, translates as electricity. And guess what? Those electrons go into us. Now, if it goes to a cow, the cow gets the electrons. So those electrons charge your batteries. This is literal. This is not a metaphor. So when we take it in live foods, we are charging our batteries. When the battery's good charge, positive, negative, and there's a good polarity, you have better health. So this is a very, very strong reason why live foods works in that way, and you have more energy. It's very common to talk about enzyme preservation, right? How many people are familiar with enzyme preservation in live food? Now, I want to challenge that a little bit, okay? Part of my job as a scientist, I challenge everything, okay? That's how you learn. Okay, and there hasn't been as much research as I would like to say on this. But what Hal found was actually just live food had 60% of the amylase you need, 30% of the protease, and only 10% of the lipase you need to digest. Well, that's not as impressive as I would think, okay? And so it does help a little bit, but there's another concept here called, when we talk about enzyme preservation, it's all built on the idea that we have a limited amount of enzymes. I completely challenge that as a false idea. We are regenerating as our telomeres get longer, if we're doing it right. And the whole lifestyle is showing that at least you can increase your telomere length by 10% a year by living the total lifestyle. Okay, which that's pretty important. We, of course, are going to turn on and maintain our enzyme production. Does that make sense? So the idea of we have a limited amount of enzymes and we'll just run out and die is really not scientifically based at all. Okay, the telomere research is saying, oh, no. Just keep healthy, you'll make all the enzymes you need. Okay, so I bring that up because it's a common belief system, but I'm not sure that it really does what we want it to do. So the other thing about live foods is it does increase our spiritual awareness. And I've done a variety of research around that. And if it's live food vegan, all the great traditions except one, no spilling of blood. I'm not telling you what the one is, okay? But, you know, what we see clearly in the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Hindu tradition, the Buddhist tradition, the Taoist tradition, no spilling of blood. Okay? In fact, the ancient rishis, 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, they were basically 95% live fooders. The Taoist masters were live fooders. I mean, there's really nothing new here. Okay? In terms of spiritual life. Well, in terms of any life, but okay. So these are some of the things that we go. Now, this is the one above is an organic seed, and the one below is a commercial seed. And there's obviously a big difference of why we want to go with organic versus commercial GMO seeds. The life force is really limited. So I want to talk about, again, points 13, 14, which is basically the outer light, when we're taking with the live foods, helps move to the inner light and kind of uplifts us spiritually and mentally as well. And what I showed, or what this research showed, is there was an 87%, let's say, increase in spiritual interest and intellectual and creative interest with people doing live foods, at 80% in that research. So that's confirmed in a variety of different ways. 87% increase in your spiritual interest and support. So that's the thing. And what's that? It's a peach. Now I bring that in because some of the early teaching said just sprouts, biogenic, have the energy. But here's a fully mature. Now here's the key. You need to eat it right away. You can't wait 3 days because it loses its energy. This is a radish sprout, it's corn sprout, cacao. Now, I like the colors of that one. Okay, this is a person who same kind of experiment where he ate junk food and ate just good organic food. The left is good organic food. There's a fingerprint there. Junk food, there's no field. This is what we're talking about. This is the pineal gland. And I want you to note that white light there, we are giving off light. See, I wasn't making a metaphor. This is a living person with laser photography, and that's us giving off light. That's the pituitary giving off the blue light. This is norepinephrine. This is epinephrine, crystalline energy. This is testosterone giving, crystals giving light. This is estrogen giving light. So, you got the picture. We are light beings. When we're eating the live food, we're enhancing that light. The outer light then supports the inner light. That being said, we'll move on here. And I want to give you kind of an overview. So food is a dynamic force. That's really what I'm saying. That affects us on the physical body, mental, emotional body, energetic, and spiritual. It's working at all those levels. And if we're really going to understand nutrition, it's really the study of how our food interacts with us in the physical, emotional, mental, energetic, and spiritual levels. That's the big picture, and that's the point I'm coming from. And we're taking energy from all over. Okay? We're taking cosmic energy coming in, solar energy coming in, breath. And the yoga this morning, I taught a little bit about the breath, but it's oxygen is the most important nutrient. Done. It's not a question. And as we look at oxygen and we look at, I have my little bottle of oxygen here. Where'd it go? I put it here, but I don't see it. Okay. Oh, there we go. Good. So I use this peak oxygen. I think I'll have some now. Oh, yeah. You're supposed to dilute it, but if you're at a certain level, you can just drink it. It's super oxygenated water. Super, super, super oxygenated water.
Where do you get it?
Well, you can get it from us. Health Gyms has it. Nani, if you want to raise your hand. Can you raise your hand, Nani, if you're there?
Just raises her voice.
Okay. That's her husband speaking. She's the one that creates this. And it's scalar wave activated. So it's really good. Any way we can bring oxygen in, like we did the pranayama this morning, it's really important. It's actually the measure in the German system. The amount of oxygen you have in your cells is the amount of anti-aging energy you have. That's how important it is. So it's a big deal. And then we have the earth energy and the chakra energy, and then finally food, which is really only 5 to 10% of the story. Kind of keeping that in mind. So in a sense, what I'm saying is nutrition is what we absorb in the overall, physical, emotional, mental plane, okay, from the different density levels that come from the cosmic force. So we're just taking it at different levels. Now, most of what we're talking about, and as a scientist, at the turn of the century, they were convinced they knew all they needed to know about physics. Closed deal. And then Einstein comes along and says, well, there is this theory of relativity. And now quantum physics. I mean, it goes on and on. So we should never, ever, ever, ever say this story is closed on anything. And when I hear people say that, a huge red flag goes up and says, you have an agenda and it isn't a scientific agenda. You have a political agenda, you have an economic agenda, whether it's vaccines or whatever, as I mentioned about the global cooling warming, that's a red flag. It's never done, okay? And this is the person who proved Einstein's work, and it's a beautiful statement, because everything I'm talking to you about live food, 10 years from now, I'll probably have a different story as understanding it, if that makes sense. Because it evolves. So we never close the door. It's a critical attitude for a real scientist. Now, we are having major problems all over the world because corporate and government businesses are actually paying the scientists. So the scientists altered their data. We see that again with the vaccination CDC. I hate to say it, but the global warming temperatures, there's real evidence that's been altered all over the world in terms of measuring it. Yeah. I'm not doing it for political, my thing was, I'm a farmer, right? Don't bother me. But the truth is that has happened. Just last week, Switzerland, Australia, and Paraguay got caught altering their temperatures. This is not right. You can't figure out what's going on. How do you do it? The only people I trust practically are people who have no government or corporate investment. Okay. So you can see, as a scientist, this is getting hard. This is not easy. Okay. So he speaks to that. He proved most of Einstein's theory because he is a great physicist himself, Sir Arthur Eddington. Verily, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a scientific man or woman to pass through a door. And whether the door be a barn door or a church door, it might be wiser that he or she should consent to be an ordinary person and walk in, rather than wait till all the difficulties involved in a really scientific ingress are resolved. Interesting. But that's the thing about live food. I mean, truly, a lot more will be proved as more money gets pointed into the live foods. Okay, Steve mentioned about, we did the study. We did 120 diabetics. 61% are healed who are non-insulin dependent in 3 weeks. A lot more after that. 3 weeks. 3 semanas, okay? 3 weeks. And then 24% insulin dependent, 3 weeks. And then, amazing, and I'm not doing work with type 1, 21% were healed in 3 weeks. I'm talking about total, come in, type 1, all the criteria are filled. 21% off insulin with a blood sugar less than 100. It's like, that was mind-blowing to me. It's like, where did that come from? Because that wasn't my even interest. And 31% of type 1 diabetics were off all insulin. They weren't less than 100, but they're off all insulin. under serious good control. Okay? So it's all kind of exciting, but the point is we have to start somewhere, and we got to walk through the door. And with the live food, vegan thing, we have to walk through the door and kind of do the best we can. That's what I'm saying. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about spiritual life, just so you give an idea. This is another 2-hour lecture, or 3. This is the symbol of the Kundalini, but the key here is the nadis, which are those intertwined things. Above that, the wings are the brain, right and left side of the brain, and above that is the highest centers. And the nadis carry energy, okay? We call it Shakti Kundalini energy. We can call it the Ruach HaKodesh if we're doing the Kabbalistic system, but the same energy, okay, same energy. And the key is don't clog your nadis. Meat, fish, chicken, and dairy clog the nadis. They bring the energy of death into the nadis. Big problem. How do you evolve when what's in your system, your chakra system, your nadis, levels of the mind called the koshes, they're all blocked with the energy of death? I mean, that's not very good. So that's why all the great traditions, no blood, no spilling of blood, no death in the system. Okay. Now there's another thing which is very important, which I particularly noticed when I got more involved in the live food thing in the very early 80s, 1983, is that people were very imbalanced doing the live food. We've evolved from there, so I don't want to retrogress there, but basically they didn't have what we call the kapha or ojas part, which lines the nadis so they don't burn out. So we had the prana, all your greens, your sprouts, and leafy greens. I mean, that's super powerful energy, okay? And with that, we have the pitta, but we call tejas, it's the fire energy of that. But if you have air and fire, you get a bigger fire, right? And it can burn your nadis. So the lining of the nadis, called the ojas, the deep primordial vigor and reserve, had to be built up to be successful and balanced in spiritual life. And in general too. So what is that? That's your fats. That's your omega-3s. Bee pollen. Actually cholesterol. You hear about that in a minute. And chlorella and spirulina and E3 live. And these are really important. I'm not going to go through over. There's certain herbs that are really, really good, like reishi, and schizander, which balances all 12 meridians. Okay? It goes on and on. And your lifestyle that doesn't burn up things. So moderate lifestyle, moderate sexuality, not over-partying, not overworking, getting adequate sleep. These play a big role in restoring and building the ojas. So I make that point because for spiritual life, but life in general, we have to have the ojas grounding part. Without that, people are what we call ungrounded. We need the ground. Ojas is the ground. It's actually water and earth. So those are the elements in our diet that are absolutely needed for long-term sustainability and strength, really. Primordial vigor, deeper than sexual energy. Okay, we have to eat in a way to do that.